When light becomes a target, there's a question you've carried, quietly like a stone in your pocket. Why does your spirit feel so heavy after being around certain people? Not just tired, not just drained, but hollowed like something sacred was touched without your permission. You smile, you listen, you nod, and yet something deep inside you feels as though it's been tampered with, shifted, dimmed. This isn't a video about rude behavior or emotional immaturity. This is about the unseen, the sacred mechanics of energy, the silent theft of your light, and the contracts you never knew you signed. There are people in this world who don't just interrupt your peace. They invert it. They mirror your light so perfectly at first that you lean in. Then they twist it, siphon it, and leave you wondering if the problem is you. It's not, and it never was. You were not born confused. You were taught to ignore your signal, to suppress your truth in the name of love, to doubt your intuition in the name of loyalty, and to carry pain in the name of peace. But what if I told you some of those connections weren't built to grow you? They were built to fragment you. This is spiritual warfare, not with swords or fire, but with silence, with guilt, with energetic distortion so subtle it hides in the warmth of familiar hands. Toxic people, truly toxic, don't shout. They rewrite you, slowly, quietly. They smile while constructing a version of you that forgets your worth. And the most dangerous part, it doesn't always hurt. It feels like connection. It feels like home, but it's not home. It's a loop. One, designed to keep you guessing, second-guessing, shrinking. Until your evolution halts, but something in you is waking up. A quiet roar, a sacred remembrance, a whisper that says, this is not who I am. And that's why you found this message. This isn't about blame. This is about clarity. This is about sovereignty. This is the unraveling of every thread that tethered your power to someone else's comfort. Because now, finally you are ready to reclaim your energy, to seal the leaks, to remember what you once forgot. Your light is not a favor to be borrowed. It is a force to be guarded. And so I invite you now, step into this journey, not with fear, but with sacred defiance. The kind that says, I will no longer abandon myself. Energetic inquiry. Tonight, before sleep, sit in silence. Close your eyes. Recall someone whose presence leaves you feeling off, foggy, or heavy. Don't judge it. Just feel into your body. Ask, is this energy mine? Then listen. Not with your ears, but with your breath, your chest, your gut. The body never lies. It only waits for you to ask. Lesson 1. The mechanics of spiritual sabotage. There are forces in this world that do not shout. They whisper, subtly, sweetly, inside the patterns of people. They don't arrive as threats. They arrive as warmth, as soulmates, as long-lost friends. They come dressed in the frequency of connection. But beneath that frequency lives something else. Interference. You've felt it before, haven't you? The conversation that left you smiling, but later your chest felt tight. The hug that felt deep, but somehow left you more tired than held. The person who always says the right things, but something in your gut still whispers, no. This is not imagination. This is not paranoia. This is spiritual sabotage, not always intentional, but always impactful. Because energy doesn't need intent to operate. It only needs access, and most people give access away, freely, unconsciously, to anyone who seems familiar, to anyone who seems intense, to anyone who knows how to mirror your light just long enough for you to lower your guard. But once that guard drops, something shifts. You stop trusting your instincts. You second-guess your boundaries. You feel responsible for their emotions, their chaos, their storms. And slowly, silently, your focus turns away from your own path and toward the maintenance of someone else's emotional weather. This is the hidden architecture. This is what spiritual sabotage really looks like. not demons with red eyes, not dramatic betrayals, but tiny distortions woven inside conversations. Glances, silences, a smile that twists your truth, a compliment laced with control, a warm presence that quietly pulls you into energetic submission. It begins when someone, knowingly or not, becomes a vessel for energetic interference. They don't need to be evil. They don't need to be malicious. All they need is to carry a wound so loud, so dominant, that it becomes contagious. And you, with your empathy wide open, absorb it. And suddenly, their guilt becomes your compass. Their chaos becomes your schedule. Their needs become your identity. This is how you forget. Not in one dramatic fall, but in the slow, sacred erosion of your energetic sovereignty. And yet, it never looks dangerous. Because it doesn't feel like violence. It feels like connection, but true connection doesn't confuse you. It doesn't override your intuition. It doesn't leave you wondering, was that my fault? It leaves you clear, centered, seen. What toxic people offer is not connection. It is fusion. A blending of energies where their distortions become your reality. And here's the truth. Energetic parasitism is not personal, it's vibrational. If you carry light, you will attract hunger. And if you carry empathy without boundaries, you will attract need disguised as love. This is why recognizing spiritual sabotage is not about identifying bad people. It's about feeling for frequency mismatch. It's about learning to listen not just to words, but to how your energy reacts. Because some people are not interested in your soul. They are interested in what your soul gives them access to. They feed, not always out of cruelty, but out of compulsion. They feed on your clarity, your calm, your confidence, not because they want to destroy it, but because they never learned how to build it in themselves. And without even realizing it, you become their battery, their stabilizer, their emotional landfill. And while they walk away feeling lighter, you are left fragmented, foggy, dull. But here's the gift hidden in the wreckage. Your body always knows. Even when your heart makes excuses, even when your mind tries to explain it away, your body remembers. It remembers how you felt before them. It remembers the contrast. And this is where your healing begins, not by judging others, but by recalibrating your ability to sense your own signal. Body check-in, the energy mismatch ritual after every significant interaction, whether it's a conversation, a text, or a lingering thought about someone. Take 1 sacred minute alone. Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold. Breathe out like wind moving through the trees. Now ask yourself, how do I feel in my body right now? Don't analyze. Don't rationalize. Just feel. Do you feel expanded or slightly caved in? Do you feel clear or subtly anxious? Do you feel like yourself or like someone else is still in the room? If the answer is anything less than centered, you are not imagining things. You are detecting a mismatch, a frequency that does not belong to you. This ritual will retrain your nervous system to recognize energetic interference before it turns into confusion, fatigue, or compromise. Do it daily. Protect your signal, because your light is not up for negotiation. And your spirit, when guarded with reverence, will always guide you home. Lesson 2. Inversion frequencies and emotional hijacking. There's a sacred law etched into the bones of the universe. Light, when mirrored, reveals truth. But when inverted, it creates distortion. And that is where the spell begins. You've known it without knowing. That strange feeling when someone praises you, but your body tenses. When someone offers love, but your soul feels entangled, not embraced. When you are pulled toward someone, not because they see you, but because they reflect something you're still trying to prove. This is the realm of inversion frequencies, where light is not stolen, but twisted, where your intuition isn't shattered, but slowly seduced into silence. And it begins subtly, always subtly, you meet someone. They mirror your language, your vision, your essence. They get you. Finally, someone who sees your soul. But that mirror isn't for reflection, it's for access. They aren't seeing you. They're learning how to blend into your field. At first, it feels euphoric. You feel chosen, understood, awakened. But over time, you start bending, not because they asked you to, but because you've already handed them your compass. This is how inversion hijacks your energy. Not by domination, but by resonance abused. By guilt that masquerades as care. By flattery that softens your spine. By silence that screams just loud enough to keep you walking on eggshells. You start feeling responsible for how they feel. You adjust your truth to preserve the peace. You over-explain your needs. You apologize when you've done nothing wrong, just to reset the vibration. This is the loop. And the loop is sacred to the hijacker. Because while you're busy decoding their mood, walking around their emotional landmines, repairing the chaos they subtly leave behind, you don't realize the real theft isn't happening outside. It's happening within. Your inner voice becomes quieter. Your boundaries blur. Your decisions grow foggy. Your body says no, but your mind has been trained to override it because of guilt, because of obligation, because of hope. And that's the trap, because the moment you feel that fog, you assume the problem is you. You double down on effort. You push harder to earn what was freely offered in the beginning. You cling to the echo of the person they first pretended to be. But that version? That was the bait. What comes next is the inversion. They begin withdrawing. You pursue, they become cold. You warm yourself with their potential. They fracture you, then offer themselves as the remedy to the pain they've created. And this, beloved, is emotional hijacking in its most mystical form. It is not about drama or cruelty. It is about distortion. It is about reversing the flow of light so that your energy fuels their comfort, while you question your very sanity. Let's go deeper. When someone inverts your frequency, you no longer trust your own navigation. You start asking, "What did I do?" instead of, "What do I feel?" Your internal compass becomes scrambled because they've installed their blueprint inside your mind. They mimic your values. They echo your words. But the energy doesn't match. And when that mismatch appears, when their words don't feel right in your body, you chalk it up to your overthinking. But it's not overthinking. It's energetic intelligence. And you were taught to betray it. You were told to be nice, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to make others comfortable, especially when they make you uncomfortable. And so inversion slides in, disguised as connection, disguised as intensity, disguised as fate. But fate doesn't confuse your truth. Fate aligns it. You don't lose yourself in divine connection. You become more of yourself. When a bond begins eroding your clarity, pulling you into self-doubt, disconnecting you from your spiritual rhythm, you are not growing. You are being drained. There's a difference between discomfort that expands you and discomfort that erases you. And your soul knows the difference. You've just forgotten how to hear it. Here's the key you've been missing. Energy flows where attention goes. And manipulators, whether conscious or unconscious, are masters at commanding attention. Not through depth or wisdom, but through instability. They hijack your focus with chaos, with silence, with guilt, with just enough vulnerability to make you doubt your discernment. And while you're tending to them, tending to their storms, you're no longer tending to you. You abandon your rituals. You stop writing. You stop meditating. You forget what it feels like to be UNDISTORTED. This is why spiritual sabotage is so hard to detect. Because it wears the costume of care. It speaks in your dialect. It mimics your growth language while feeding on your frequency. But the body knows. And when you begin to listen again, when you stop explaining away the fatigue, the fog, the dizziness that follows certain connections, You awaken the truth that never left you. Signal reboot. A breathwork ritual to reclaim your frequency find. A quiet space. Sit or lie down with your spine straight. Close your eyes. Place your right hand over your heart and your left over your stomach. Begin by taking a deep, intentional inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold it at the top for 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this for 5 rounds. Then, silently repeat this phrase in your mind. I return to my center. I reclaim my frequency. I release all inversion. I remember my signal. Feel into your body as you breathe. Notice the warmth returning to your chest, the clarity to your head, the calm in your limbs. Repeat this ritual anytime you feel hijacked, confused, foggy, disconnected from truth. It doesn't just calm your body. It realigns your spiritual signal back to what is yours. Because no matter how deeply you've been inverted, no matter how long you've danced with distortion, your true frequency waits beneath the noise. And the moment you remember how to tune into it, the spell begins to break. Lesson 3. The psychic blueprint of toxic bonding. There are wounds that do not bleed, but whisper. And sometimes, the most dangerous things ever said to you weren't said aloud at all. They were etched into your nervous system by repetition, by patterns, by subtle glances and long silences, by the way someone looked away when you needed to be seen, or leaned in only when you were small, afraid, or apologizing. This is the psychic blueprint of toxic bonding. And it begins not with violence, but with validation. Twisted validation. You meet someone. They reflect a version of you that feels known. And because it feels known, it feels safe. But in truth, it only echoes a vibration you were trained to recognize. That recognition is not love, it is memory. A memory of survival. A reenactment of the first time you learned that your worth was conditional on your silence, on your sacrifice, on your willingness to shrink for the comfort of others. Toxic people don't always break you. They rebuild you in their image. Piece by piece, they shape your sense of self around their needs. Their instability becomes your weather report. Their emotions become your mirror. Their moods determine your reality. And slowly, your inner voice is replaced with their voice, wearing your face. You doubt your perceptions. You second-guess your boundaries. You apologize for truths that were never wrong. And each time you do, the blueprint deepens, not on paper, not in memory, but in frequency. You begin living from a place that isn't your own. This blueprint is not random. It is precise. It's built through small, repeated patterns. A sigh when you speak your needs. A smile that fades when you express joy. A compliment that twists into a warning. A kindness that comes only after compliance. These are the rituals of psychic programming. And over time, you start adjusting before they even ask. You shape-shift preemptively. You rehearse conversations in your head. You dilute your truth before you speak. You feel guilt, not for doing harm, but for daring to be whole. And that guilt? It's not yours. It was installed. This is the paradox of toxic bonding. It's not your love that kept you in the loop. It's your programming. The false idea that connection must come at the cost of self-abandonment. Let's go deeper. Every manipulative relationship builds two blueprints at once: the external performance and the internal architecture. On the outside, you become more agreeable, more adaptable, more easy to love. But on the inside, you are being rewired. You stop asking, "Does this feel right?" and start asking, "How can I keep the peace?" The desire for harmony becomes a form of self-erasure. And here's the most sacred truth. You are not confused. You are conditioned. There's a frequency inside you that remembers who you are. But that signal has been buried beneath layers of other people's fears, expectations, and projections. And this blueprint? It doesn't vanish when the person leaves. That's the great misunderstanding. You can walk away from the toxic dynamic, But if you don't rewrite the architecture inside you, you'll keep living in the house they built. You'll keep drawing the same shapes with different names. You'll keep calling fragments home. You'll keep mistaking intensity for intimacy. You'll keep magnetizing people who speak your language, but don't match your vibration, because you're not attracting who you want. You're attracting what you've been coded to find familiar. Here's the thing: most people don't tell you. These false internal voices, guilt, shame, self-doubt, aren't just psychological. They are spiritual echoes, residual frequencies, left behind by energy that once invaded your field. And they speak in first person. They wear your tone. They masquerade as you. I'm too much. I'm overreacting. I need to be more understanding. Maybe I deserved it. These are not your thoughts. They are imprints like energetic graffiti on the walls of your sacred space. Until you uninstall them, they will run your inner world like ghost scripts, quiet, persistent, undetected. And that is why healing is not just about insight. It is about reprogramming. You see, every time you betrayed yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you handed them a tool. Not to destroy you, but to reshape you. And now, it's time to retrieve those tools. To reclaim the architect's pen. To reauthor your psychic blueprint from the inside out. Because here's the mystical truth. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to remember who you were before you were reading. And to do that, you must start listening for the voice beneath the noise, the voice that never blamed you, the voice that never shamed you, the voice that never asked you to dim. That voice is still there, waiting for permission, waiting for space, waiting for you to stop living by a map you didn't draw. Guided writing ritual. Uninstalling false programming tonight. Or whenever your soul feels quiet enough to speak, create a sacred space. Light a candle, dim the lights. Breathe slowly into your center. Have a journal before you, not to write what's true, but to write what's hidden beneath the false. Then write this prompt at the top of the page. What beliefs about myself did I absorb from people who did not love me properly? Write for 10 minutes without stopping. Don't edit. Don't judge. Let the blueprint speak. Then, when you feel the energy shift, draw a line beneath the writing and write a new prompt. What is true about me beyond their programming? Write again. Not from memory, but from your signal. This is how you begin to uninstall the architecture, not with rage, not with regret, but with remembrance. And if you do this daily, if you listen patiently, you will begin to feel the false voices fade. You will hear yourself again, not the version they built, but the one you were born to be. Whole, clear, uncoded. Because the most powerful act of rebellion in a world full of distortion is to believe the truth of your own frequency and let it echo louder than every voice that ever asked you to forget it. Lesson 4. Emotional entrainment versus soul alignment. There's a silent phenomenon happening inside you, not always seen, but always felt, a mystical rhythm your body tries to maintain, and 1,000 others it tries to match. This is entrainment, the hidden law that says, I will adjust my frequency to match the most dominant energy in the room. It is not logic, it is resonance. It is ancient, primal, magnetic, and unless you become aware of it, it will run your life. You see, energy is like sound. Two tones in close proximity will begin to align, not because they choose to, but because vibration seeks harmony, even if that harmony means becoming less of yourself. When you're near someone calm, you feel still. When you're near someone joyful, you lift. When you're near someone chaotic, wounded, manipulative, you begin to contract, you begin to shift. Not all at once, but slowly, until their emotional rhythm becomes your new normal. That's the essence of emotional entrainment. It's not about belief, it's about biology. Your nervous system is trying to survive, and so it learns how to dance to someone else's drum. But here's the problem. In doing so, you start to lose your own beat, your own pulse, your own frequency. What begins as empathy becomes absorption. What begins as care becomes entanglement. And without realizing it, you're no longer living from your soul. You're echoing someone else's storm. Let's go deeper. You walk into a room with someone who carries unprocessed rage. You were grounded just moments before, but now your stomach tightens. Your breath shortens. You feel alert not in a powerful way, but in a vigilant one. Your energy field, your aura compass starts spinning to keep up. You try to stay soft. You try to hold space. But really, you're adjusting. You are becoming a version of yourself that survives their vibration. This isn't compassion. This is entrainment. A sacred system corrupted by survival conditioning. Over time it fragments you. Not through pain, but through dissonance. The internal war of being one thing while performing another. The exhaustion of trying to maintain your light while managing someone else's shadow. You feel tired, but not just. Physically, you feel foggy, indecisive, out of sync. You begin to forget what clarity felt like. Because you've been orbiting someone else's signal for so long, you think it's your own. That's what we call spiritual amnesia. Not forgetting who you are intellectually, but forgetting how it feels to simply be you, undistorted, unhijacked, unbent. But there's another way, a sacred contrast. A remembrance beyond the noise. It's called alignment, where entrainment demands that you bend. Alignment asks only that you return, where entrainment feels like performance. Alignment feels like truth. You know you are aligned when you breathe deeper, you speak slower, you feel your intuition not as a whisper, but as a presence. Alignment is not a personality, it's not a performance. It's your baseline frequency. When no one is pulling at your signal, you don't need to be alone to be aligned. You simply need to be anchored in your field, so rooted in your essence that other frequencies pass through you like wind through tall grass. Felt, but never. Altering your shape, you don't chase, you don't shrink. You don't adapt out of fear. You remember, and you remain. But to do that, you have to become fluent in your own vibration. You must learn to tell the difference between, this is my intuition, vs. this is my nervous system reacting to someone else's chaos. You must learn to detect the moment entrainment begins. The moment you start leaving yourself to accommodate someone else's pain. Because it always starts the same way. A tightening in your chest. A subtle self-editing. An instinct to soothe someone else before consulting your truth. And when that happens, your alignment begins to bend, not in surrender, but in sacrifice. Here's the sacred truth. You do not have to adapt to survive anymore. You are no longer a child needing to adjust to the emotional weather of unstable caregivers. You are a sovereign energetic being, a tuning fork of truth. And when you vibrate in alignment, others either rise or fall away, and both are blessings. Because the more you entrain to distortion, the more your gifts become polluted. Your insight becomes hypervigilance. Your empathy becomes entrapment. Your love becomes a leash around your own neck. But when you return to alignment, you heal without needing to fix. You love without losing yourself. You serve without leaking. This is not cold. This is clarity. And clarity is sacred. The threefold tuning fork practice for energetic alignment whenever you feel off, foggy, or unsure if you're entrained. To someone else's energy, pause and perform this sacred RECLIBRATION. Step 1. The stillness check. Sit in silence for 1 minute. Ask, if I were alone right now, would I feel different? If the answer is yes, you've left your center. Step 2. The breath pulse. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Repeat 3 times. Then ask, Is this feeling mine? Let the body answer. The truth will rise through sensation, not thought. Step 3. The reclamation whisper. Place your hand over your heart. Say aloud, I reclaim my rhythm. I release what is not mine. I return to my alignment now. Let your energy reattune. Feel the difference. Notice what quiets. Notice what was never yours to carry. When you practice this, you begin to break the spell of entrainment. You stop dancing to someone else's music, and you begin moving from your own sacred drumbeat. You no longer leak. You no longer bend. You no longer forget. You remember that your frequency was never meant to be a reaction. It was always meant to be a beacon, and the world does not need more people who adapt. It needs people who vibrate whole, clear, aligned. Lesson 5. The aura as sacred armor. Your skin is not your only boundary. There's another layer to you, unseen, but deeply felt. It surrounds you like a quiet breath of light. It remembers what your mind forgets. It absorbs what your words never speak. And when it tears, you don't just feel tired. You feel unwhole. This is your aura, not a metaphor, not a fantasy, but your energetic skin. A living membrane that wraps around your essence, shielding you from psychic invasion, emotional entanglement, and frequencies that don't belong to you. And when it's intact, you feel centered. You walk into a room and stay in your rhythm. You listen without absorbing. You care without carrying. You observe without merging. But when it's torn, when life, trauma, or proximity to toxic frequencies pierce tiny holes in that shield, you become porous. You start mistaking other people's feelings for your own. You wake up tired from dreams you don't understand. You feel foggy after conversations that were seemingly harmless. You leave a gathering and something just lingers, not a memory. A residue. This residue is real. It's what remains when someone has touched your energy without reverence. It's what clings to your field when words were spoken in manipulation, not truth. It's what you carry after being around someone who feeds on attention but offers none in return. It shows up as weight, as a strange guilt that has no story, as confusion that whispers, maybe I'm just too sensitive. But this isn't about sensitivity. This is about spiritual hygiene. This is about boundaries that are energetic, not just verbal. Because not every invasion happens through action. Some happen through vibration, through someone thinking about you with intensity, through someone projecting blame into your space, through someone pulling on your light like a lifeline without asking first. And here's what no one teaches you. The aura remembers, even when the moment is over, even when the person is gone, even when you've moved on, something in your field still holds the imprint. You feel it when you try to meditate, but can't sit still. When you try to rest, but feel haunted. When you walk away, but somehow feel tethered to what you left behind. That's not overthinking. That's not emotional weakness. That's a ruptured boundary in the unseen. You were not taught how to guard this sacred field. You were taught to be polite, to be open, to be available. But openness without discernment becomes leakage. Availability without protection becomes violation. Your aura was never meant to be a sponge. It was meant to be a shield, fluid, intuitive, a live dot. And just like your physical skin can scar, your energetic skin can fracture. Especially when exposed too long to toxic frequencies. Especially when surrounded by people who feed on your light without gratitude. You see, toxic individuals don't always enter like storms. Sometimes they slide in like smoke, invisible, sweet, and suffocating. They don't break your boundaries. They bypass them through charm, neediness, or spiritual language. And while your mind negotiates, your aura absorbs. This is how you begin to carry energies that aren't yours. Emotions that don't match your truth. Thoughts that feel strange inside your head. Even dreams that leave you waking in panic, not because of what you saw, but because of what you picked up. But here's the truth you've forgotten. You are not broken. You are simply unsealed. And what has been pierced can be repaired, because your aura is not passive. It is not static. It is not at the mercy of others. It is a living light field, constantly pulsing, shaping, and responding to your awareness. The moment you bring presence to it, it begins to strengthen. The moment you treat it as real, it begins to restore. And that restoration starts with intention, with reverence, with the understanding that your energy is sacred and must be treated as such. Let's speak now to that sacred part of you. The part that has been drained, stained, and scattered. The part that knows it's time to come home. The way forward is not dramatic. It is devotional. It is not in cutting cords with fire. It is in sealing what was left open with breath, light, and your own remembering. Because the aura doesn't ask for protection from others. It asks for connection from you. The energetic sealing visualization, each night, before sleep, when the veil is thin and the body is open. Take 10 minutes to restore what was lost. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes. Place one hand over your heart, one hand over your solar plexus. Begin to breathe slowly, in for 4, out for 6. With each breath, imagine a soft golden mist rising from your skin. See it gathering around you, dense, warm, radiant. This is not your imagination. This is your energy, responding to you. Now, speak softly within your mind. I call back all parts of my energy now. I release all cords, hooks, and projections that are not mine. I forgive what entered. I fortify what remains. As you continue to breathe, watch this golden field seal around you, like a second skin of sacred light. You may feel warmth, tingling, tears, or stillness. Whatever arises, honor it. Stay here for a few more breaths. Let your aura wrap you like armor. Not as a wall, but as wisdom. Not as defense, but as divine clarity. Do this daily, and you will begin to feel whole again. You will walk through the world clear, unburdened. Not because others changed, but because you no longer leak. Remember, your aura is not optional. It is not decorative. It is essential. It is the guardian of your frequency, the translator of your soul, the echo of your most unspoken truths. Treat it with reverence, seal it with love, and walk like the world cannot touch you unless invited, because in truth, the most powerful protection is presence. And the most sacred shield is remembrance. Lesson 6, Compassion versus Compromise. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey where the very thing that once felt holy begins to feel heavy. You love, you give, you understand. You forgive, again and again. You do it not out of weakness but out of strength, a strength rooted in compassion. But at some point, you begin to feel it. The imbalance, the slow erosion, the subtle sting of compromise masquerading as kindness. And you wonder, when did compassion start to cost you your clarity? You see, compassion is sacred. But what many never tell you is this: compassion without boundaries becomes a leash around your soul. And compromise, when repeated in silence, becomes spiritual decay. There's a frequency to true compassion. It expands you, softens you, anchors you deeper into your own truth. But false compassion, the kind that's born out of fear, guilt, or conditioning, that kind fragments you. It twists your heart into a currency. It makes your empathy something to be spent, not shared. You were likely taught early on that love meant sacrifice, that understanding meant endurance. That patience meant holding space for people who refused to hold space for themselves. And so you learned how to bend. You learned how to make room. You learned how to carry others, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, until their storms became your daily weather. But let me tell you something you were never told. It is not your job to be the shelter for those who bring the rain. Can be kind and still say no. You can be compassionate and still walk away. You can be loving and still protect your field. Because real compassion begins within. It is not selflessness. It is wholeness. It is the ability to hold love for another without losing devotion to yourself. It is choosing not to abandon your own needs to make someone else feel less uncomfortable in their dysfunction. The danger lies in the performance of compassion, when it becomes a script you follow to avoid conflict, to be seen as good, to be spiritual enough. That version of compassion isn't rooted in truth. It's rooted in fear. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being alone. But here's the mystical truth. Real love doesn't ask you to betray your soul in order to keep the peace. It doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't require you to carry burdens that don't belong to you. Many toxic dynamics thrive on weaponized compassion. They twist your empathy into obligation. They know you're kind, and they count on it. They push your boundaries with subtle guilt, spiritual bypassing, and phrases like, "If you were really awakened, you'd understand me." But that's not awakening. That's manipulation draped in spiritual language. And your silence in the face of it, that's not grace. That's energetic compromise. There's a difference between healing someone and holding space for someone. One is a sacred offering. The other is an unpaid job you were never meant to take. And when you overextend in the name of compassion, your light starts to flicker. You don't just feel tired, you feel lost. You feel resentful. You feel disconnected from the very love you're trying to give. Because you can't pour from a leaking vessel. You can't radiate from a fractured core. You may tell yourself it's noble, that you're strong enough to carry what others can't, that you're healing the world by being the bigger person. But if being the bigger person constantly leaves you smaller, quieter, dimmer, then it's not healing, it's harm. It's a contract you never sign but keep fulfilling. And it's time to tear it up. Because your compassion was never meant to come at the cost of your alignment. There's a sacred kind of no, the kind that closes the door, not with anger, but with clarity. The kind that says, "I love you and I cannot continue to abandon myself in your presence." That kind of no is not cruel. It is medicine. It teaches your nervous system that love and self-protection can coexist. It reminds your soul that peace is not earned through suffering. It shows others, especially those who feed on your compassion, that your energy is not available to those who cannot respect it. This is where spiritual maturity begins. When you stop confusing compassion with compromise. When you stop mistaking tolerance for truth. When you stop giving your light away as if it were charity. Because your light is not disposable, it is divine. And not everyone is meant to sit in its warmth, especially those who extinguish it while pretending to be cold. Let us speak now to the part of you that has been stretched too thin, the part that's tired of overgiving, the part that just wants to be loved without losing itself in the process. That part of you doesn't need more lessons in patience. It doesn't need to be more understanding. What it needs is a return, a homecoming, a fierce remembrance that you are not here to carry everyone. You are here to carry your frequency, whole, intact, radiant. You must begin to ask yourself, where does my compassion end and my self-abandonment begin? Where do I soften in truth? And where do I bend in fear? Who do I keep giving to out of guilt? And what part of me believes that love must always mean loss? Because these questions don't just shift your perspective, they rewrite your vibration. They pull you back into alignment. And from that place, you no longer compromise, you choose. You choose when to give and when to retreat. You choose who receives your presence and who no longer gets to taste your energy. Not out of ego, not out of cruelty, but out of reverence, reverence for your path, reverence for your peace, reverence for your light. And if someone calls your boundary selfish, remember, that says more about their entitlement than your integrity. Because those who truly love you will feel your boundary and step closer, not away. They will honor the line you draw, because they understand it's drawn from love, not from lack. You were not born to leak endlessly. You were not born to serve your spirit to those who cannot nourish it. You were born to shine, to hold, to rise, and to choose where your compassion flows. The Mirror of Compassion journal: set aside 15 minutes in a calm, sacred space. Light a candle, or simply breathe deeply until your mind slows. Then open your journal and answer the following: where in my life am I confusing compassion with compromise? What part of me believes I must earn love by enduring discomfort? Who drains me even when I show up with love, and why do I continue to stay available to them? What would it look like to love them from a distance that protects my soul? Write freely. Let the words come from your nervous system, not your intellect. This is not about judgment. It is about reclamation. The moment you begin seeing your compassion clearly, not as sacrifice, but as a sacred currency, you begin honoring it like treasure. Let this ritual become a new rhythm, a way of telling the universe, my energy is sacred. And from this day forward, it flows where it is honored, not hijacked. Lesson 7. The echo of early conditioning. There are patterns you keep walking into that didn't begin with you. They were etched into your nervous system before you had language. They were absorbed in the quiet moments, not through words, but through energy. You learned that love could mean absence, that closeness could carry tension, that safety might come wrapped in control. And so you adapted, not because you were broken, but because you were brilliant in survival. You learned to read the room before you read your own reflection. You learned to soften your voice, your truth, your needs, because that's what got you love. Or rather, that's what got you the illusion of safety. And now, as an adult, you call that feeling home, even when it hurts, even when it confuses you, even when you know it's wrong. Something inside you whispers, this is familiar. This is what connection feels like. But what you call love may just be recognition. Recognition of a frequency that once held you hostage in your formative years. A parent, a caregiver, a sibling, someone whose love taught you to shape-shift, to earn affection by editing yourself, to be agreeable when you wanted to scream, to keep the peace even when the air was thick with tension. You weren't raised on truth. You were raised on emotional codes that said, you can belong, but only if you betray yourself just a little. And so you did. And now, you find yourself doing it again. Not because you're blind, not because you're weak, but because your body remembers what it took to be kept. And here lies the wound that most spiritual teachings bypass, the one buried under your kindness, your loyalty, your resilience. It's the wound that whispers, if I am good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, they will stay. But what you are really chasing is not love. It is familiarity. And your nervous system cannot tell the difference between love and survival unless you rewire it. Until then, every time someone withdraws, you'll chase. Every time someone grows cold, you'll warm yourself with their potential. Every time someone demands more than you can give, you'll stretch beyond your own soul just to keep the connection alive. Not because you want to, but because you were trained to. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. Your early conditioning wasn't your fault. But now it's your responsibility. Because the longer you let the past guide your present, the longer you will call pain purpose and chaos chemistry. You will confuse anxiety with passion. You will confuse control with care. You will stand in front of someone who triggers your deepest wounds and call it a sign from the universe, when really, it's just the unhealed echo of your childhood, playing itself out again. You must understand this. Your nervous system was built for someone else's comfort, not your own. It was wired to accommodate dysfunction. It was trained to regulate someone else's emotions before you could even name your own. And now, you flinch at real peace. You tense in the presence of honesty. You recoil when someone sees you clearly without needing you to bleed first. Because to you, that feels suspicious, unsafe, even boring. But that isn't truth. That is trauma's residue. It's the echo of conditioning so deep it became a rhythm, a spiritual heartbeat you didn't choose, but learned to live by. The saddest part of all is this: when someone offers you real love, the quiet kind, the consistent kind, the kind that doesn't demand sacrifice, you feel the urge to run, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. You've mistaken intensity for intimacy for so long that calm feels like danger. And so you sabotage it. You pick fights. You doubt them. You push them away and then ache when they leave. But the ache isn't about them. It's about the version of you who was never taught what it feels like to be held without performance. And yet, the moment you see it, truly see it, something sacred happens. You begin to unhook. You begin to pause. You begin to question not the person in front of you, but the pattern within you. You begin to ask, why do I feel most alive? Around those who make me small? Why do I trust people who make me doubt myself, but push away those who see my power? Why does discomfort feel so much like destiny? These questions are the beginning of your liberation. Not because they give you answers, but because they awaken the one asking. The one buried beneath years of conditioning. The one who remembers what safety feels like not in their mind, but in their body. You begin to realize that your early environment wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. A mirror showing you exactly what you were never meant to carry. So that now, in your awakening, you could finally put it down. It won't be easy. Your body may resist it. Your habits may scream against it. Every time you choose peace over performance, your nervous system will panic. Every time you say no when you used to comply, your inner child will feel like it's committing treason. Every time you walk away from a toxic bond, your mind will flood you with guilt. But this isn't weakness. This is withdrawal. Withdrawal from the drug of dysfunction. Withdrawal from a lifetime of believing that love equals labor, that care equals compromise. That your needs are negotiable. You must let go, not just of people, but of programs. The silent ones. The ones that whisper you're hard to love. That your needs are too much. That your boundaries make you difficult. That your worth is in what you offer, not who you are. These voices are not truth. They are echoes. And they fade only when you stop feeding them. To heal this, you don't need another person. You need a new pattern. You need to become the one who speaks to your nervous system in a new tongue. Who holds your inner child and says, you don't have to earn safety anymore. You are safe just by being. You must retrain yourself to feel peace and not flee from it. To feel calm and not create chaos. To sit with your truth and not edit it for someone else's comfort. This is sacred work. Not soft, not romantic. But holy. And here's the gift. When you finally break free from the echo of early conditioning, you don't just heal yourself. You heal your timeline. You interrupt a chain of distortion that has been passed down for generations. You become the one who says, it ends with me. The one who no longer passes on the programming. The one who no longer mistakes pain for purpose. The one who no longer says yes when their soul says no. This is what true spiritual awakening looks like. Not crystals or incense or rituals, but remembrance. The moment when you remember that who you are beneath the wounds is not fragile. It's divine. And that divinity was never meant to live in chains. Not the golden chains of people-pleasing. Not the silent chains of endurance, but in sovereignty, in clarity, in full alignment with your truth. You are not the echo. You are the voice breaking the spell. Lesson 8. Leaving as a sacred act. Leaving is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, unspectacular, soft. Sometimes it's a whisper you obey before it ever becomes a scream. And sometimes it's not even a decision, it's a recognition. A moment when something deep within you simply says, I can't stay here anymore. Not because you hate them, not because you're angry, but because something in your soul knows it's time to rise, to exit the loop, to walk away not from a person, but from a pattern that no longer honors who you're becoming. That moment is not a collapse, it's an initiation. The threshold where healing stops being a concept and starts becoming a boundary. And in that moment, the act of leaving transforms into something holy. You may think walking away means giving up. That letting go is a failure. But in truth, it is one of the most powerful acts of reclamation you will ever make. Because leaving, when done in truth, is not rejection, it is return. A return to your center, to your clarity, to your sacred rhythm. It's remembering who you were before you began orbiting someone else's emotional chaos. Before you began adjusting yourself just to survive the vibration of another. Before you made love a reason to disappear from your own soul. And yet, it's not easy. Because what you are leaving behind isn't just a person, it's an entire architecture. A house made of compromise. A room wallpapered in their projections. A foundation laid with your own self-doubt. And even when you know it's time to go, part of you will ache for what you thought it could have been. For the potential. For the fantasy. For the moments when it almost felt right. That ache is real, but it is not a reason to stay. It is simply grief. Sacred, ancient, necessary grief. Because to leave a toxic dynamic is to grieve the version of you that needed it. You will mourn the you who tolerated too much. The you who made excuses. The you who begged energy to love you back while shrinking to keep it close. But when you walk out of that version, when you finally stop performing stability in a house built on distortion, you will feel the tremble, the space, the silence. And that silence? That's not emptiness. That's freedom. The freedom to hear your own signal again. To feel what's true without interference. To breathe without fear of stepping on someone else's fragility. Still, don't be surprised when others do not understand. They may call you cold. They may say you changed. But that's only because your new frequency no longer fits the role. You used to play in their story, the role of the rescuer, the accommodator, the silent witness to their chaos. But you don't owe them your light just because they're uncomfortable in the dark. You don't owe them a seat in your presence. Simply because they once had access to your vulnerability. Because access is not entitlement, it is earned through consistency, not claimed through history. The truth is, when you finally stop abandoning yourself, some people will start to feel abandoned. Not because you harmed them, but because your boundaries no longer accommodate their distortion. And that shift, that's where your healing takes root. In the moment you realize you can still love them and leave. You can still bless them and block their energy. You can still be compassionate and be unavailable. Because forgiveness is not the same as permission. And closure does not require conversation. Sometimes the deepest closure is silence. Not the silence that avoids truth, but the silence that honors it. You may feel guilt. It's natural. That emotion is the residue of an old program. The one that taught you love must mean staying, enduring, tolerating. But guilt is not always a signal of wrongdoing. Sometimes it's a sign that you're doing something radically new. Something your nervous system wasn't trained for, choosing yourself. And with time, that guilt will dissolve into grace. The kind of grace that blooms when you realize leaving wasn't the betrayal. Staying in betrayal of yourself was. And yes, there will be loneliness. Not because you made the wrong decision, but because your soul is detoxing. You are releasing. Not just a person, but an entire vibrational contract. And that space they once filled will feel empty for a time. But emptiness is not your enemy. It is sacred soil. And in that soil, something true will grow. A version of you who no longer begs, who no longer molds, who no longer sees love as a transaction, but as a mirror of divine reflection. You'll begin to remember what it feels like to trust yourself again. To make decisions not from fear, but from resonance. To be in your own company and actually feel peace. To walk into a room and not scan it for emotional landmines. To speak your truth without shrinking. This is not isolation. It is integration. And it is the birthplace of your next evolution. And when someone asks what happened, why you left, why you're different, why you're no longer available for chaos masked as connection, you won't need to explain. You'll simply smile, not out of spite, but because you no longer need to prove your truth to those who cannot hold it. You no longer need to defend your departure from a place that drained you, because your leaving was not an exit, it was an arrival. Back to your essence. Back to your knowing. Back to the self you abandoned when you mistook survival for love. This is sacred. This is initiation. This is what it means to walk the path of the mystic, to recognize that some souls come not to walk with you, but to wake you. Not to stay, but to stir. And once the stirring is done, the lesson complete, the energy integrated, you release them, not in hatred, not in drama, but in reverence, because you have learned what you came to learn. And now you are free. Let yourself leave. Let yourself rise. Let yourself shed the skin that was built in rooms where you had to be less to be loved. You are not here to be palatable. You are not here to make everyone comfortable. You are here to be whole. And sometimes wholeness requires departure. Sometimes. The most spiritual thing you can do is walk away and never look back. Not out of bitterness, but out of sacred self-respect. So when the time comes, when the voice within you grows too loud to ignore, when the discomfort becomes undeniable, when the lie can no longer be lived, let yourself go. Let yourself walk. Let yourself grieve. And then, let yourself be reborn. Because the end of that chapter is not the end of you. It is the beginning of the you that no longer explains, performs, or waits to be chosen. You have already chosen. You chose yourself. And that, in this world of endless compromise, is the most sacred act of all. Lesson 9. Fortifying your frequency. There's a stillness that returns to your life once you've walked away from distortion. It doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't come with applause. It arrives in silence, in the quiet, steady breath you take without anxiety, in the absence of chaos, in the subtle realization that you no longer wake up trying to decode someone else's energy. And in that silence, something miraculous happens. You begin to hear yourself again. Not the version of you that was shaped by need, approval, or fear, but the original signal, the one beneath the programming. The one you came into this world with before the world tried to override it. That signal is your frequency. And now, finally, it's time to fortify it. You see, your frequency is not a mood. It's not a personality. It's not even your identity. It is your energetic signature, the vibration that echoes out from your soul, announcing to the universe, "This is who I am." It speaks louder than words. It moves faster than thoughts. It is what others feel when you walk into a room before you've said a single thing, and when it's intact, people know. They may not understand it, but they feel it. It's not charisma, it's clarity. It's presence. And it commands without demanding. But most people aren't operating from their true frequency. They're running on distortion, hijacked vibrations, signals filled with static from years of emotional entanglement, cultural conditioning, and spiritual disorientation. Their frequency isn't just quiet. It's muffled beneath layers of noise, the expectations of others, the internalized voices of guilt, shame, self-doubt, the compulsive need to explain, prove, soften. All of that becomes energetic interference. And so they move through the world like a fractured radio, always trying to tune in, never quite landing. To fortify your frequency, you must first reclaim it. You must call back every piece of yourself that you gave away, knowingly or unknowingly, in moments of desperation, obligation, or fear. Every time you said yes when your body said no. Every time you dimmed your joy to make someone else feel less insecure. Every time you absorbed someone else's chaos and called it your responsibility. Those were not small acts, they were breaches. Not of behavior, of signal. And now your healing is the act of sealing them. This doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers. Every time you notice when your energy is shifting, not from within, but in reaction to someone else's field, you reclaim power. Every time you honor your intuitive no without justifying it, you seal your frequency. Every time you choose presence over performance, you strengthen the architecture of your inner world. And slowly, you stop reacting to life and start resonating with it. Fortifying your frequency is not about being untouchable. It's about being unshakable. It's about being so attuned to your essence that no amount of emotional bait, psychic pull, or performative love can pull you off center. It's about becoming a sovereign field, a walking temple, a channel of pure signal. And in that state, your energy becomes protective, not because it's armored, but because it's aligned. You'll know it's working when the things that once hooked you no longer even land. The manipulative silence, the half-hearted apologies, the guilt-laced compliments. They'll pass through you like smoke through open hands. You'll no longer be seduced by potential. You'll stop romanticizing patterns. You'll stop participating in dynamics where your intuition has to shout to be heard. Because your frequency will speak louder than the noise. And when others try to pull you back, not just into relationships, but into old roles, old scripts, old energies, you'll feel it instantly, not as danger, but as disalignment. Tightening in the gut, a buzz in the chest, a heaviness in the breath. These are not red flags. These are messages. This is your body, the instrument of your soul, telling you, this is not my signal. Do not tune in. You don't need to confront it. You don't need to prove your growth. You don't need to explain why you're no longer available for the role they once wrote you into. You simply stay aligned. You hold your field. You let your no be woven into your vibration, not with bitterness, not with righteousness, but with grace. Because alignment doesn't argue. It just resonates. The more you live from this place, the more you attract what's meant for your signal, not what's familiar to your wounds. You'll begin to notice the difference between resonance and relevance. Just because something was once part of your story doesn't mean it belongs in your future. Just because someone understands you doesn't mean they're aligned with you. Alignment is not about shared history. It's about shared vibration. And when you hold your frequency, only those who can meet it or rise to it will stay. You must understand your energy is an ecosystem. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every relationship you entertain either nourishes or pollutes that system. You wouldn't drink poisoned water just to be polite. So why allow polluted energy into your field in the name of love? Fortifying your frequency means treating your vibration like sacred territory. Not everyone should have access. Not every emotion should be entertained. Not every invitation should be accepted. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. And clarity is one of the most loving states a soul can embody. It liberates not just you, but everyone you come into contact with. Because when your frequency is whole, it gives others permission to meet you in theirs, or to walk away. Either is a blessing, because both lead to alignment. And alignment is always sacred. Let's be honest, there will be moments when you slip, when someone pulls you into their drama. When you feel the old hooks trying to sink in, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're not healing. That means you're still human. The key is not to avoid those moments. It's to recognize them faster, to return quicker, to notice the shift in your energy not after days, but within minutes. This is spiritual agility. This is energetic mastery. And it comes with practice. You will begin to notice what you once Tolerated now feels unbearable. What once felt familiar now feels false. And you'll start saying no, not with resistance, but with ease, because your frequency no longer permits distortion. Not because you're better, but because you're awake. World will still be loud, people will still pull, but your field, once fortified, becomes a sanctuary, a temple of truth, a vibration that no longer bends to fit the container, but calls in containers worthy of its shape. This is when the true magic begins. You stop chasing alignment, you become it. You stop looking for signs, you become the signal. And those meant. For you will feel it, without needing to be convinced. You'll wake up not asking who needs you, but asking what nourishes your signal today. You'll make decisions from clarity, not urgency. You'll hold your ground not to prove a point, but because your energy has nothing to prove. This is the end of spiritual fragmentation. This is the rebirth of energetic sovereignty. This is when you stop surviving life and start transmitting your soul into it, that you are not just a seeker of peace. You are a source of it. Fortify your frequency and watch the world recalibrate around your vibration.